Welcome to IP Concerns Deep Dive, the podcast version of our IP Concerns blog from Cascade Law Group. Here, we unpack intellectual property-related, real business and brand protection topics in a way that actually makes sense, no legal experience required.
You know how when you go out to dinner with a large group of people?
Oh, yeah. Always a fun time.
Yeah, right. And at the end of the night, someone inevitably suggests just splitting the bill evenly.
Right.
It just feels polite, you know? It feels easy. You might have just had, I don't know, a side salad and a glass of tap water, while the person across from you ordered the lobster and like 3 martinis.
Yeah, always the guy with the martinis.
Exactly. But you throw down your credit card anyway because you want to keep the peace. You want to seem cooperative, friendly, and frankly, nobody wants to be the person at the table pulling out a calculator and
Itemizing.
Yeah, itemizing a receipt down to the last breadstick.
Yeah, I mean, it is the socially graceful thing to do in that moment. It signals that you value the relationship, more than the friction of a minor financial imbalance.
Right. But then you take that exact same social impulse, right? That innate human desire to just be polite and cooperative, and you translate it into the business world, specifically into the foundation of early business relationships and legal contracts. And suddenly, paying for someone else's lobster isn't just a minor annoyance.
Oh, no, it's not.
You are introducing a structural flaw that could compromise a company's entire intellectual property and even threaten its whole future.
Yeah. We're talking about the Mutual Non-Disclosure Agreement, the MNDA.
The MNDA, yeah.
It's treated as standard operating procedure, like a sort of legal handshake to kick off a relationship. But relying on it when it isn't strictly necessary is, well, it's building a legal strategy on a foundation of social politeness.
Right.
And social politeness is a terrible mechanism for protecting proprietary assets.
Okay, let's unpack this, because in the business world, an MNDA sounds incredibly fair on the surface, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds very balanced.
Right. The underlying premise is, we'll protect your secrets if you protect ours. But I have to push back a little here, though. Doesn't signing a mutual agreement just show good faith? Like, if you are a fast-growing startup and you are trying to land a critical vendor or maybe a new partner or a high-level consultant, why wouldn't you want to play nice and seem cooperative from day one?
Well,
I mean, you want to remove friction, not create it, right?
I mean, the instinct to remove friction is totally valid, but the application there is deeply flawed. Yeah. The danger arises because you are signing a mutual agreement when the actual flow of information is entirely one-sided.
Okay, one-sided.
Right. Think about the reality of most startup and vendor relationships. The startup is opening up its playbook, right? They're sharing its core technology, its customer data, maybe its future roadmap.
Yeah, all the crown jewels.
Exactly. The vendor, on the other hand, is generally just bringing standard off-the-shelf services to the table. They aren't sharing secrets. So accepting a mutual legal obligation in that scenario, simply to avoid the awkwardness of a tough negotiation, it misaligns the contract with reality.
It basically creates this illusion of symmetry.
Yes.
Like, we are pretending that we are both sharing highly sensitive secrets just so nobody feels slighted. Exactly.
And by trying to avoid a minor social friction today, a company is hardwiring catastrophic legal friction into its future. You were applying a two-sided contract to a one-sided reality.
Wow.
And when a flow of information only goes in one direction, but the legal framework governing it assumes a two-way street, well, you open the door to some incredibly complex legal vulnerabilities.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of those vulnerabilities, because I want to know, how does this actually go wrong in practice?
Sure.
Because if I share my secrets, right, and they share nothing, it seems like the worst-case scenario is just a piece of paper that doesn't really do much for them.
Well, the first major vulnerability is IP contamination.
IP contamination, okay.
Yeah. And this happens because of how confidential information is defined in these, these boilerplate mutual agreements. A vendor hands over an MNDA, and the definition of what they consider confidential is often incredibly broad.
Oh, I see.
It covers everything from specific code to, like, vague concepts, ideas, and general business strategies.
So they basically throw this massive legal dragnet over anything they happen to, like, mention in a meeting.
Exactly. Now imagine a casual brainstorming session. You're discussing a project, and the vendor's rep mentions a broad, somewhat generic concept they've been thinking about.
Okay.
Because of that broad definition in the MNDA, that vague concept is now legally protected, confidential information that you have a duty to keep secret.
Wait, really? Just from a casual mention?
It's just from a mention. So a few years pass. Your internal development team, who maybe wasn't even in that original meeting.
Right, they're just doing their own thing.
Right. They launch a new product.
Yeah.
And that product happens to rely on a concept similar to the one the vendor casually mentioned years ago.
Okay, wait. So it is like a vendor vaguely mentioning, we are researching fruit-flavored desserts.
Yes, perfect.
And then 2 years later, my independent R&D team invents a revolutionary, highly complex cherry pie.
That is a great way to visualize it, yeah. They didn't give you the recipe for the masterpiece cherry pie. They just claimed a ubiquitous category. But because you signed a mutual NDA with a broad definition,
Oh, no.
yeah, they now have the legal leverage to claim that your revolutionary pie was derived from their fruit dessert secret. Your internal development is legally contaminated.
That is insane.
That vendor could file a lawsuit, they can seek an injunction to halt your product launch, and claim misappropriation of trade secrets.
That is terrifying because, I mean, even if I win the lawsuit eventually, my product launch is frozen, right?
Oh, completely frozen.
My legal fees are astronomical and my investors are panicking.
Exactly. The mere threat of the lawsuit is the weapon.
Wow.
And it gets worse. What if the vendor literally shares absolutely nothing at all? No vague concepts, no ideas, nothing.
Wait, does the contract still hurt me if they shared zero information? Like literally nothing.
It does. And this is the second hidden vulnerability. Fabricated IP footholds.
Okay, fabricated footholds.
Right. What's fascinating here is the legal mechanism at play, which is inference. When a contract is explicitly titled and structured as a mutual non-disclosure agreement, it automatically creates a legal inference that confidential information was intended to, and likely did, flow in both directions.
Even if the reality is that I only sent them my data, and they literally just sent me invoices.
Exactly.
Cool.
Law looks at the four corners of the contract. The contract says it was mutual, so the law infers a two-way exchange of proprietary information.
Oh my God.
Let's look at how this plays out mechanically, okay? You hire a specialized engineering firm to help scale your platform. You share your core technology with them, they do the work, they get paid, and they leave.
Standard stuff, yeah.
Right. 5 years later, your startup is wildly successful, and you're about to be acquired by a massive tech conglomerate for hundreds of millions of dollars.
The dream scenario.
The dream scenario. But during the due diligence phase of that acquisition, the buyer's legal team is going to scrutinize every contract you've ever signed to ensure you actually own 100% of your intellectual property.
Right, they want to make sure it's clean.
Yes. And they find this old mutual NDA with the engineering firm. Because the contract infers a two-way street of shared secrets, that former engineering firm now has a contractual foothold.
Just because it says mutual at the top.
Yep. If they get wind of the acquisition, they can reach out and claim that elements of your core IP were actually derived from proprietary methods they shared with you during that engagement.
So they are essentially weaponizing the implication of the contract to hold up my acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. And buyers hate uncertainty. A fabricated claim from an old vendor introduces a massive cloud over your IP title.
Wow.
The buyer might freeze the entire acquisition, demanding that you go settle with this vendor and get a clean release of claims before they wire the funds.
Oh, so you end up paying out a massive settlement to a vendor who didn't invent anything.
Right.
Just to make them go away so your deal can close.
Exactly. You literally handed them a crowbar to pry into your company's ownership years down the line, purely because you wanted to be polite and sign the standard form.
That is just wild. And that leads to a third issue I want to dig into from our sources. The concept of administrative burden.
Ah, yes.
The idea is that an MNDA forces a company to strictly track any information received from the third party, monitoring expiration dates and tail periods. But I have to admit some skepticism here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, compared to getting sued over a cherry pie or having a multi-million-dollar acquisition derailed, is administrative burden really a fatal threat?
I get that.
I mean, it just sounds like annoying paperwork that software can handle.
It is easy to dismiss it as just paperwork, but let's break down the mechanics of a tail period.
Okay.
Most NDAs have survival clauses. They state that even after the business relationship ends, you are legally obligated to maintain the secrecy of the other party's information for a tail period, which is often 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so I keep their files on a secure server for 5 years. That doesn't seem, crippling.
But it's not about the storage of the data. It's about the restriction of your personnel.
What do you mean?
Startups survive on agility and rapid iteration, right?
Right.
If you have legally obligated yourself to protect a third party's broad, generic data, your legal and compliance teams now have to vet new projects against that data.
Oh.
Yeah. If your engineers want to start a new sprint that might touch on an area remotely related to what that vendor did, legal has to step in. They have to ensure the engineers working on the new project are completely walled off from anyone who had access to the vendor's data.
Just to prevent accidental cross-pollination.
Exactly.
So it's not a filing cabinet problem, it's a workflow bottleneck.
You're building invisible legal walls inside your own engineering department. Every new product roadmap has to navigate a labyrinth of red tape to ensure it doesn't intersect with walled-off information from a vendor engagement that ended 2 years ago.
That sounds exhausting.
It slows down innovation. It requires a massive allocation of internal resources just to manage compliance for data you didn't even need in the first place.
Okay, that makes sense. You are basically throttling your own speed to accommodate a polite gesture.
Precisely.
So we have IP contamination, fabricated footholds, and crippling tail periods.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move from the abstract mechanics to the real world now. I want to look at specific business scenarios where this polite reflex is most dangerous and where a company needs to insist on a unilateral or one-way NDA.
The most common scenario is hiring independent contractors or high-level consultants.
Wait, let me stop you there, because if I am hiring a high-level, expensive consultant to come in and fix my operations, aren't they bringing their proprietary frameworks?
Well, yes and no.
Like their unique methodologies? Why wouldn't that justify a mutual NDA to protect their special sauce?
It is a really common misconception. Yes, a consultant brings expertise, background knowledge, and skills.
Mm-hmm.
But in a work-for-hire relationship, they are providing a service to your business, utilizing your confidential data to solve your specific problems.
Okay.
Their general frameworks are their tools, not proprietary secrets being transferred to your ownership. If you sign a mutual NDA, you blur the lines of who owns the specific output of that project.
Oh, because the mutual agreement gives them that foothold to say, well, the solution we built relies on my protected secret framework, therefore I retain some ownership of the final product.
Exactly. The correct mechanism here is strict separation. You use a one-way NDA to relentlessly protect the internal data, code, and strategy you're disclosing to the consultant.
Right.
Then you pair that one-way NDA with a very explicit work-for-hire agreement and an IP assignment clause.
Can you break down how that IP assignment actually functions mechanically, just so we're clear?
Sure. So under standard copyright law, the person who creates the work, the author or the coder, they own it by default. An IP assignment clause is the legal mechanism that explicitly severs the creator's default copyright and transfers full ownership to your company the moment the work is created.
Okay.
If you muddle that clear transfer by also signing a mutual NDA that promises to protect the consultant's underlying IP within the project, you create a conflicting contract. You are paying them to build a house on your land, but the mutual NDA gives them a legal argument that they still own the plumbing.
Oh, I love that analogy. You pay for the house, but they own the plumbing. I see. The one-way NDA clears the brush, and the IP assignment builds the fence.
Perfectly said.
All right, let's look at another scenario. You aren't hiring someone. You are asking for money. Pitching to venture capitalists or angel investors.
Oh boy.
The power dynamic is intimidating here, right? You need capital.
Oh.
Offering a mutual NDA feels like a way to show you are a serious, equitable partner who respects their time and their business.
Yeah, offering a mutual NDA to a venture capital firm is a massive red flag. It is one of the fastest ways to signal to an investor that you do not understand the operational realities of the market you are trying to enter.
Well, why does it backfire so badly, though?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, look at the business model of a VC. They evaluate hundreds, sometimes thousands, of tech pitches a year.
Right.
They are purely in the business of evaluating your technology and your business model. They are not disclosing their internal trade secrets, their fund strategies, or their proprietary algorithms to a founder pitching for a seed round.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you slide a mutual NDA across the table, you're asking their legal team to take on liability for information they aren't even sharing.
And from what I understand about deal flow, signing a broad NDA could actually lock a VC out of future investments, right?
That is the fatal flaw right there.
Okay.
If a VC signs your broad mutual NDA to look at your drone delivery startup, and your NDA broadly defines confidential info as, say, delivery logistics concepts, that VC might be legally restricted from investing in a different, vastly superior drone delivery startup 6 months later simply because of the contamination risk.
Wow.
A VC's legal counsel will instantly reject that.
So the deal dies before you even open your pitch deck.
Yep.
Not because your idea is bad, but because you tried to force a polite but toxic legal framework onto them.
Exactly. The fix is incredibly simple. If you must use an NDA for deep technical due diligence, it must be one way, protecting only the founder's disclosures.
Just the founder.
Right. But frankly, for initial investor meetings, you shouldn't rely on an NDA at all.
Really? No NDA?
No NDA. You rely on a sanitized pitch deck that sells the vision and the traction without exposing the underlying patentable mechanics. Keep the deepest secrets out of the first date.
Keep the secrets out of the first date. I like that. Let's talk about physical products now. Here's where it gets really interesting. Engaging white label manufacturers or original equipment manufacturers, OEMs.
Yes. This is perhaps where a mutual NDA can do the most immediate, tangible damage to a company's bottom line.
Let's run a hypothetical here to see how this breaks down, all right? Let's say I have a startup, and we've developed a revolutionary new athletic recovery drink.
Okay, a recovery drink.
I have the exact chemical formulation, the secret sauce, and I need to mass produce it, so I go to an overseas bottling manufacturer.
Right.
They have the factory, the vats, the bottling lines. I give them my secret formulation so they can make it. But what happens if I use a mutual NDA in this scenario?
Well, under a mutual NDA, you are legally equating your secret formulation with their manufacturing process.
How so?
You are sharing the core IP of your business. They are sharing their standard operational capabilities, like how their machines run, their logistics schedule. By making it mutual, the contract implies that the bottler is an equal contributor of proprietary information to the final product.
Oh, so they start bottling my drink. It's a huge success. What's the threat then?
The threat is that 6 months later, you discover a suspiciously identical recovery drink being sold in a different market under a different brand name, produced by that exact same factory.
But I have an NDA. I can sue them for stealing my formulation.
You can try.
Right.
But when you go to court, the manufacturer's lawyers will point to the mutual NDA. They will argue that the final product was a commingled result of your formulation and their proprietary protected manufacturing techniques.
Oh, because the mutual agreement blurred the lines of who owned the core innovation.
Exactly. They can argue they have a right to utilize the joint knowledge they helped develop. They use the mutual NDA as a shield to protect their theft of your product.
Wow. So the legal structure has to reflect the physical reality. I am the innovator. They are just the kitchen.
A one-way NDA forces that reality onto the paper. It explicitly states that the manufacturer is a recipient of information, not a contributor of intellectual property.
Right.
It strips them of the ability to claim that their standard factory processes gave them an ownership stake in your unique formulation. It prevents them from legally duplicating, rebranding, or selling your specific product to direct competitors.
Man, we covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
We've looked at the trap of social politeness, the mechanics of contamination and fabricated footholds, those invisible walls of tail periods, and the harsh realities of consultants, investors, and manufacturers. So what does this all mean? If we boil all of this down to the absolute core philosophy, the guiding principle for anyone navigating these contracts, what is the golden rule here?
The golden rule of non-disclosure agreements is that the legal structure of the contract must strictly mirror the actual physical flow of information.
Strictly mirrored.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the information only flows one way, the contract must only flow one way.
It's about accurate risk allocation. If you are the only one opening up your playbook, if you are the only one exposing sensitive data to risk, a one-way NDA is the only logical framework.
Exactly.
You do not accept a mutual obligation simply to avoid a slightly uncomfortable conversation at the start of a relationship. Contracts aren't about being polite.
No, they're not.
Going back to our dinner analogy, if you are picking up the entire tab, you don't sign a document saying you split it evenly just to make the other person feel like a big shot.
Right.
You are just legally taking on their debt.
Exactly. You have to separate your social manners from your legal strategy. But, analyzing the legal mechanics of these agreements actually forces us to confront a much deeper issue about how companies operate internally.
Oh, how so?
Well, we spent a lot of time discussing IP contamination.
Right, right.
The very real danger that taking in broad, useless information from an outside vendor can legally taint a company's internal research and development.
Right, the threat of an injunction freezing a product launch just because someone in a meeting heard a vague concept 2 years prior?
Yes. But this raises an important question. Consider the psychological impact of that legal reality on a fast-growing startup.
Okay.
If executive leadership and the legal department know that an overly broad mutual NDA has exposed the company to these contamination risks, how does that dictate internal policy?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
What does that underlying fear do to the actual culture of innovation?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Does the routine signing of the wrong legal document inadvertently stifle the very creativity, cross-pollination, and open brainstorming it was supposedly designed to protect?
Because everyone's just walking on eggshells.
Right. Because if engineers become terrified that a casual conversation with an outside expert might result in a lawsuit that destroys their own project, what happens to the exchange of ideas?
They just stop talking.
Exactly. They stop collaborating. And that might be the biggest hidden danger of all.
Wow. That is definitely something for everyone to think about.